Good evening. Thanks very much for coming back to my channel. This is a special edition episode of a live stream, and what we're doing today is we're talking about 24-hour relay races. So obviously, you know me, I'm Rich, and I've done the Cotswold 24-hour relay 3 times. I've got Sam with me today. So welcome to the channel, Sam.
Thanks, Richard.
And just so people can get to know you quickly, just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your running background.
So I've probably been running about 4 years now. Started with a little adventure run in the middle of nowhere doing 5 kilometers, and then it kind of just grew from there. I'm always looking for something bigger and better to do, much to my own detriment because I'm always injured. So I managed to get my running club spot to London Marathon, and I trained really, really hard for that, and it was amazing. And then after that, I kind of thought, well, what else can I do? And then it just got even crazier. So I've done Endure twice, once as a relay, once as a solo. The solo I did shortly after I had come out of recovery from a knee operation, so it probably wasn't the wisest move, but I did it anyway. Supposed to be doing it again this year, but I sadly had to defer it because just coming out of injury again. So that's me in a little bit of a nutshell. Crazy, and I do everything else. So yeah. Okay,
thanks for that. So we're going to get into our sort of top tips, and what I hope you can all do is, if you've got any questions you want to ask us about 24-hour relay racing, get those comments in the live chat early on so we can take the questions for you. We might cover some of it anyway, but we'll do what we can to answer your questions. We've already got one comment from the running square. He says he can't wait. There's 2 amazing runners in the house.
Yay!
So that's Connor, isn't it, I think? So yeah, welcome, Connor. Okay.
Hi, Connor.
Right, so we're going to talk about, first of all, is the various different types of events that are out there. So a lot of them are similar, where, I don't know, you've done Endure, so it's like you camp and there's a set lap, and you've got to repeat that lap as many times as possible as a team within 24 hours. So we know of the Cotswold 24-hour relay, the Mizuno Endure 24. There's the Adidas Thunder Run, or it might be called TR24 now. They might have changed the name slightly. The Henley 24-hour relay, and there's a Spitfire Scramble as well. And they're all the camp-based ones with the laps. So if you're doing any of those, let us know which ones you're doing. So we thought the first thing to talk about is the camp. So what would you recommend, Sam, for setting up camp and getting ready?
Well, obviously make sure you have your crew all organized, discuss what you're going to do beforehand. So make sure you have a plan of action. If there's going to be a large group of you, make sure, if you can't all get there early on the Friday, I would certainly recommend getting someone to go out and basically map an area for you, you know, so that everyone can be together. The fun part of the 24-hour relay runs is that you're doing it as part of a group, and it's an amazing sensation. So definitely planning, you know, the plan of action, getting the right tents, getting, you know, your area mapped out is definitely what I would recommend.
Yeah, and your camp definitely helps make the whole experience. We had several tents, and we sort of tried to face them all in on each other. So we had like a bit of an area that was guarded off by our tents just for us. And we set up chairs in there and everything. It was really good. But yeah, I would recommend getting there on the Friday if you can, and setting up, because if you get in there Saturday morning, especially if the traffic's bad, you get there a bit late and you're in a flap and you're trying to set up whilst the race is starting. It's not an ideal start to your event. And then what would you say? Like, would you recommend lots of small tents, or would you recommend one great big tent? How would you go about it?
Well, it really depends on personal choice. I mean, if you're social but not that social and you want your own space, then, you know, have your little 2-man tent, but have it with the other people. I mean, our running club, you know, we've had big, massive 10-man tents down to little 1-man tents, and even a camper van in there. So it's down to your own personal preference as far as I'm concerned. But as long as you're all together, it doesn't really matter what sort of tent you have.
Yeah, definitely. I think as well, if you don't own a tent and you're just buying it for the relay, you can get pretty cheap, you know, 1 or 2-man tents, can't you, in Tesco's and things. And even if you're just going to bin it at the end of the weekend, then you haven't spent too much.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go back year on year, it might be worth, as a team, investing in a tent, or as a running club, investing in a big tent where you can all use.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just depends on what you want to do. Yeah, so we've got a question already. The Running Square is asking, what would you advise for nutrition and food that you're going to eat?
Well, my recommendation as far as nutrition is concerned is make sure your body has been tried and tested. So don't go there and all of a sudden decide, okay, I'm going to have these, branded gels. You need to make sure that your body can actually tolerate them. So do your tests beforehand, at least a couple of months, make sure your body can actually cope with the food that you're putting in. So just quick and easy things like porridges and soups, and obviously your gels are really good to have in between and stuff like that. My personal preference, I like making peanut butter sandwiches and cutting the crusts off, just making sure that you've got really fresh bread. And again, planning beforehand is definitely key. I mean, what else would you suggest?
Yeah, so one thing we always take is the large, big bottles of mineral water that you can buy.
Yeah.
We took about 5 or 6 of them. So we had a fresh water supply at camp, because they will have somewhere to get water. But if you're tired, you don't want to be ferrying back and forth, dragging a big aqua roll along or something like that. So we just had them at camp. And we would use that to boil up, to make the porridges or pot noodles or all the, quick and easy things to make with just boiling water. It's mostly the dehydrated foods we had at camp. And also we had a massive tub of protein shake powder.
Yeah.
So rather than taking the pre-made ones and bottles and bottles of them, we just had one thing of powder. Yeah. And it was easier to transport there. And then to mix it up, it was ever so easy. Just shake it up in your bottle. And in terms of like meals, I don't know about you, but I found it really hard to eat a whole meal.
Oh, no, definitely not. I didn't eat anything big and substantial. So, yeah, I definitely agree. A large meal is definitely not something.
Yeah. I mean, I've not done it solo, but as a team, you have to kind of calculate the pace of the people that you're running with. So if you run your lap, say you're going to take an hour, and then the next person's an hour, and you've got, say, 5 hours between laps. That's how long you've got between your runs. And in that time, you've got to eat something, digest it, and be ready to run again. And a massive meal, you're just not going to be able to do it.
Yeah, but again, it's down to personal preference. You might have the body that can actually cope with those meals.
Yeah.
Me personally, I would struggle. I would really struggle.
Yeah, I do as well. And I found, the first year that I did eat a big pasta thing, and I started to get really bad stomach cramps and stitches, and I struggled in some of my laps. So I found it a lot more comfortable to just be eating smaller things and quick things. And then I think, if you're coming into the evening, you're going to go to bed and you're going to have a sort of meal. I think that's the time, is to eat and then go to bed, and then that should digest for when you wake up for your night lap.
Yeah,
maybe.
Definitely eat before you go and sleep. Doing it after you've woken up is definitely, it's not something I would have done.
Yeah, I think the strategy has got to be get in from your lap and eat as quick as you can, really.
Yeah.
Because then you've got more time to digest it. And also, it's proven that aids recovery. If you eat within that first 20 minutes after you stop exercise, to get it in the body quick. Okay. And the Cotswold 24-hour relay did have like a food tent where they changed the food that was in the tent throughout the day. So there was sort of breakfast, lunch, and dinner options depending on the time of the day. What was it like?
Very similar setup at Endure. They have the festival tent there as well. So it's a very good environment. It's an amazing environment to be in. But there are loads of different catering options at the main function area. And
what was the prices like for the food?
I can't comment because I didn't buy any food when I was there. The last time I was there, I obviously did it solo, so I would have my eating lap, so I would run and then I would actually stop and walk while I was eating, and that's how I fed myself. So I didn't see the inside of the main arena much at all.
What sort of stuff were you eating on the go then?
Like I said, the peanut butter sandwiches were definitely a big thing for me, and just like cereal bars, but the less stodgy ones. You know, again, it's really important that you train your body and make sure that the body can cope with whatever you put in it through that period. So yeah, and the energy gels, I could live on the energy gels, which is not very good. I would definitely not recommend that.
No, you've definitely got to test them first, haven't you?
Yes.
So you go with them. Okay. Right, so we've covered the nutrition. Oh, Matthew Miller is in. Hello, Matthew. He's left a comment, but it's been retracted, it says. So I don't know what's happened there, Matthew. If you've left a question, put it in there again, mate, because it hasn't come up properly. Okay, so moving on to kit then. So you've got your tent, you've got your food and nutrition sorted.
Yeah.
You know, what do you think people need for the running kit that they're going to take?
Well, choice of shoes is very important. So for Endure, the terrain is, you know, it's fields and dusty roads, which you can get away with running on road shoes, but there have been times where it has rained, and especially through the foresty bits, it can get quite muddy. So I would definitely recommend having, you know, a variety of pair of trainers with you. So I think I ended up taking 4 pairs of trainers with me to Endure when I did the solo, just so that you can be prepared for any sort of environment, and also just to give your feet some time to breathe, because you're swelling, you're sweating into those one set of trainers. So it's a good thing to try and change them and air them out. Socks are really, really, really important.
Absolutely, I agree with that, yeah.
I had a rather unfortunate event at Endure where I got to 15 and a half hours and I had to pull out because I just exploded in blisters due to the wrong sock option. So one thing I can recommend is Ninja socks. I personally wear them. They are toe socks. Trust me, I swear by them. If you can get used to wearing them, they are amazing. I have not suffered from blisters since I've started using those.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah. I've never used those.
Definitely get yourself a pair. Try them out.
Okay. Yeah, and I definitely agree with the trainers. I think the first time I did it, I calculated I might do 7 laps. And I'd hung on to all of my trainers that I'd ever had, but they were like retired pairs of trainers, and I had 7 pairs. So I thought, well, great, you know, I can bring them out of retirement for one lap.
Bring them all with.
And I took all 7, but I ended up not needing all 7. But it was nice to have them there. But then the second and third time, I sort of, like yourself, I think I took 2 or 3 pairs because I realised 7 was probably a bit much. But if you get a wet lap in particular, like it can rain in the summer, most of these races are sort of June, July, aren't they? But it can rain. And if you get sodden feet, you do not want to be putting those wet trainers back on to go out for a fresh lap and you're wet before you've started. And like, say blisters, that's what causes it, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, shoes and socks, definitely.
Definitely.
I personally had a fresh set of shorts and a fresh t-shirt for every lap, and I'm talking from a team perspective where I'm going to run my lap and then I'm going to have a rest before I go out again. So I didn't want to be putting on damp or smelly clothes, you know, so I just thought a fresh kit.
I did that in the relay when I did the relay with Endure, but it's also important when you do the solo to have, you know, change of gear. You don't want to be running for 24 hours in the same gear. I mean, some people will run for a few hours and actually go and sleep, but for me, that was never an option because I knew that if I stopped and sat down, that my body would just seize. So I'd just keep going, lap after lap. You know, if I can't run it, I'd be walking it, but I just would keep going. So it's important to have a change of clothes, you know, probably for at least every 3 laps, you know, at a minimum.
Yeah. And I think what they do at the Cotswolds with the camping is the solo runners are actually camped right next to the start-finish zone.
Exactly the same at Endure.
Yeah, and the teams are sort of further back because you can walk back and forth because you've got a bit more time between your laps. So yeah, they're quite good like that. And then I guess you can have your clothes ready in your tent, and you could maybe just do a quick shirt change.
Yeah, just do a quick shirt change. You know, check that everything's okay in your trainers and in your socks. You know. it's important to be comfortable, because otherwise it could make for a really grueling 24 hours.
Yeah. And obviously you get at Cotswold, you get one race bib, and you've got to swap that between shirts. Is it the same at Endure?
Endure, they've got, I think it's, if I remember correctly, it's a band that they've got to give to another person. I can't remember, if I'm honest, because obviously the last one.
What about like a runner number, like a bib? Do you have to wear a bib?
You do have runner numbers, but it's different numbers. You don't all get the same number as a team.
Yeah, each individual's got their own number.
Their own number, yeah.
Yeah. And then, so do you have to swap that between your shirts if you're going to change shirt?
No.
Do you have to...
Well, obviously, yeah. If you want to run with the number on it, you know, these days, there's so many people out there that just don't bother putting their numbers on.
Oh, okay.
Because it's all chip time, so whether you're wearing a number or not, it's really irrelevant. It's mainly, in my opinion, these days, it's more about having the number on you so you can get a good picture, which you end up having to pay for anyway at most places.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So, I mean, safety pin in your number, if you want to swap your number from one shirt to another, that can be fiddly and,
yes,
you know, time consuming if you're tired and everything. And your fine motor skills are going to go in the night as well when you're tired. You know, you've got those magnet options, haven't you, now, to get bibs on? Maybe consider something like that so it's easier. You
also get the ones that I wish I'd bought an example, but you've actually got the ones that they almost like clip into each other. They're not magnetic. The magnetic ones, I'd be worried about them falling off. But this other one, it's almost like
event clips, aren't they?
Yeah, they're really, really good. And there's so many different options out there. I got smiley face ones from London.
Yeah, I've got On the Run from our running club, On the Run, so that if I'm in a charity top or something like this, I can still have On the Run. So, but yeah, there's different options. I think with the kit as well. Sorry, I'm just like referring to my notes. Head torch, absolutely essential, isn't it? On your night labs.
Good quality head torch. So many people make the mistake of getting one with you know, batteries that fade really quickly. So investing a little bit more money into a really good quality head torch is definitely a must.
And you can take a hand torch as a backup. Like if you've got a small mag light or something, only a little one, just in case that head torch goes on you in the middle of the woods. It's pitch dark, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It's worth having a little backup. But you find as well, if I found a runner who was really struggling, he couldn't see anything, and you know, my torch was on. I just helped him round that lap, and you've got to work together at night because it is dangerous if somebody gets stranded. So, but yeah, you need that head torch, and if it's rechargeable, USB rechargeable one, maybe some battery power packs to keep that charged, you know, keep your phone charged, keep your watch charged, all that stuff.
Keep your watch charged.
That's the main thing.
You can lose the head torch, but you can't lose your Garmin.
I might have run smack into a tree, but it's on Strava.
I may have tripped over that tree trunk. What should I do?
Okay, brilliant. So we've covered kit, I think.
I think you may have a few questions.
Yeah, I've got some questions piling up here now. Gosh. Okay. So Ellie Hoare says, hello guys, it's a band. Oh, that she was talking about the beer, but yeah, that, so it's a snap-on wristband.
That's it.
Some people will have something else so their friends can see them.
Oh yes, what they tend to do is they use like something big, people get a letter inflated with, is it helium?
Yeah.
I forgot the word there for a second. Yeah, but different groups tend to use something that would be easily identifiable, because when you're coming in for your lap, there are easily hundreds of runners in a cage waiting for their team member to come through. So it's important to have something that you can easily identify, you know, running towards the team member. So definitely a good opinion there.
We came up with this idea of, like, obviously you've got your head torch on here. We said what we'll do is we'll cover the head torch on and off like this. So when we come down the finishing straight, you'll see the flashing and you'll know it's us. And there were so many head torches bobbing around, you just couldn't, it didn't work. So that's probably a good idea to have something.
Yeah.
Or some
fairy lights on a stick, or you're just something
unique, so you stand out. Okay, thanks for that, Ellie. That's a really good point.
Yeah, good point.
So the PB runner has asked, what mental approach do you take for such a long event? Do you break it down into segments, and how do you get through the low points? So from a team perspective, it's definitely broken down into segments, because say I go out first, I do my lap, and I know roughly what my lads are going to be running in their time. So I think, right, I've got about this long between my laps. So I need to eat, I possibly need to shower, I need to get my next kit ready, maybe get my head down, have a little sleep and all of that. And then I'm out for my next lap. So it's definitely segments. It's lap, focus on that, then focus on preparing, then focus on your lap. So that's great for a team. But, you know, what about in solo? How would you break it up into segments?
You know, I don't know about other people, but me personally, I just have this ability to just keep going. And it is very much a mental game. You just have to, I can't explain it. I just have this ability to just keep going. I was called a plodder last night, which is very true, because I will just keep going. Which has actually resulted in injury. So yes, it's about the mental game, but what is really fundamentally important is listening to your body. You know, if you can feel a tweak, you know, rather just stop, go and foam roll, you know, listen to your body would be my biggest bit of advice. Don't do what I do. Actually, you've just got to listen. I know at Endure, they are offering, you know, they've got yoga classes this year. So you could come off during your lap and actually go and do a bit of yoga, do a bit of stretching. So, you know, I would say get into that zone that makes you happy, you know, that will keep you focused and will take you through the hard times, whether that's listening to some kind of music or talking to other runners out there. I mean, that for me was the biggest thing with Endure running it solo is you end up seeing the same faces, you know, going through the night, and they always stop and, you know, check and see if you're okay, especially if you're having a low point. Yeah, I don't know how else to explain it, because I'm just crazy and I will just do these things, and I don't actually think about my mental state at all, because it's clearly just a mental thing with me anyway.
Yeah, and I think, you know, I haven't done this solo, but I've done comrades, and I think you do have to segment it, because if you look at the big picture, you might overwhelm yourself and think, I can't do this, and you start to have all these negative thoughts. And I think it's important to like keep an internal positive dialogue going.
Yeah.
So tell yourself, you know, it's only this lap, I can make this lap, you know, or one more, I can just do one more. Just think about it like that in small segments, and positive that you can do that small segment, and then move on to the next one. PB Runner says crazy is good.
That's what I believe. Well, you know, I think for me the low point was my final lap at Endure, where I actually had a medic who wanted to pull me out. He walked with me for about a mile. The blisters started, you know, probably into my second last lap. They started quite, you know, they hit me quite severely. And by the time I got to this last lap, which would take me to my 50 miles, I was determined to finish it at all costs. And I literally walked the entire lap in severe pain. And obviously the medics picked up on the fact that, you know, I was quite clearly, they thought that I was, what happens with runners at these big events is they can actually go into a state of shock. And they thought that I was in that state. And it was literally just because I was in so much pain. And it took every fiber in my being to actually finish that lap. So it is very much a mental game. But again, my advice is listen to your body. If you feel it tweaking, sort it out then and there. Don't do what I did.
Yeah, and in our second year as a team, so the rules of the Cotswold one is probably the same. Every team member has to complete one lap at least, otherwise you don't count as a team. And I ran in the first 50 meters of my first lap. I hit some sort of pothole or something. My ankle went out to the side, and I'd sprained it, and I could feel it was painful. I forced myself around that lap, knowing that if I didn't finish that lap, the team would be disqualified. And then I saw the St John's, and they basically said to me, like, if you go out on your next lap in about an hour, that ankle's not going to be ready. It's swollen and stuff. And if you try that, you probably won't be able to run any more laps. But she said, why don't you rest for 10 hours, something like that. It's a 24-hour race. She goes, rest for 10 hours, let the team pick up the laps and then see how you do.
Yeah.
And what happened was the following morning, I ended up doing about 4 laps in very quick succession. And the lads who'd been picking up my laps had been doing their laps even quicker, and they'd all started to pick up injuries and things as a result of me having an injury. So yeah, it was good advice to rest, and it meant as a team we could still always have someone out on the course, and we got enough laps, and we still managed to win that year, even though it was an absolute shambles. The plan went out the window, everybody was injured, but we made it. So just listen to the medical advice and listen to your body, definitely.
With the laps, as a part of a relay, I would definitely recommend making sure that you plan ahead as how you're going to run things throughout the evening. So if you all sit down as a group and say, all right, I'm going to do it in an hour, I'm going to do it in 45 minutes, so that you've got a chart, and so when, you can kind of guesstimate where you're going to go out again. It's really important to have that, because then it's at least a bit of structure, and that's part of the mental game, because then when you're going to rest, and when you're going to go out. Obviously, as and when things happen, like Richard had with the injury, then you can adjust as you go along. But as long as you've got that plan in the beginning, then you can adjust around it, because that plan will still carry you through to the end, even with the adjustments.
And we've mentioned here about having a strategy, and this is we're sort of touching on that already, is who's going to run in what order. Are you going to put your strongest runner out first and get a really good lead, or are you going to hold your strongest runner back to make up some ground later, and try and figuring that sort of strategy out. And are you going to do single laps or double laps if it's a team? We personally, my team, what we try and do is single laps, and we go through the team 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we just keep that turning over, and we find that works. I've seen some teams do single laps like that throughout the day, but when they hit the night, so maybe 11 p.m, midnight, they start doing double laps, so that yes, you're out for a double lap, but that means all your teammates are getting double the sleep in one chunk of sleep, rather than having broken sleep every couple of hours. So think about that and what's going to work for you.
Well, the on the run teams at Endure have always done a single lap, and then that's carried on right through the entire 24 hours, and that works for them. And they've got different types of teams. They've got the serious guys that go out there and they want to go out, and race for time. But then you also get the fun lappers. So as long as you've got that strategy in place from the beginning, make sure it works for you. That's the main part of it, and that's the biggest part of the mental game.
Yeah, and I've seen one guy, this team held this guy back. He went out about 11 o'clock and he basically did a marathon overnight whilst everyone else slept. I mean, if you've got someone that's up for doing that, fair play. I wouldn't be. But
when I did the solo last year, there was I distinctly remember there was this pair of ladies that were doing it, and I think they were actually doing 10 laps each. So the one would go out, do 10 laps, and the next one would go. And I just thought that was crazy. And they were legging it. I mean, I was plodding. If you could try and call what I was doing running, but I think that would be, quite a complimentary term to what I was doing. But they were properly legging it, and the laps that they smashed out was sensational. So it really depends on your running capabilities too.
Yeah, definitely. I've also put a note here about a waking strategy. So who's going to wake who up for which lap? You've got to figure that out. So what would happen is, say Sam came back from her lap, she can't be waking me up if I'm next. I've got to be already awake. So the person before Sam who got back would wake me and say, Sam's out now, it's you next. That gives me like 40 minutes to compose myself, get myself ready and get up to and you want to be in the zone maybe 10 or 15 minutes before you expect Sam in, because you need to be there when she's back. Quick handover and go, because you can lose time in transition as well. And you're waking each other up strategy and keeping that transition, those quick transitions going through the night. That is what makes or breaks teams.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, on the run, the groups do exactly the same thing. Wake up the alternative person. But I've been on you know, in the waiting area where people have come in off their lap and they're exhausted and they're shouting and they're shouting and they're shouting.
Yeah, where
and
are
their
you?
teammates not there. And it happens so often. So that's definitely important, because it can be quite demoralizing when you get there and there's no one to hand over to. So that's definitely key.
There was, I hope Will doesn't mind me sharing this, but there was one moment where Will was out, Simon was next, right? So I'm with Simon and I'm helping him with a handover, holding coats and jackets and whatever else. And Simon said to me, "Oh, I do just need a toilet really quick." "Oh, I'll have time. And he nipped off. Will got back, and Will's a calm guy. He doesn't ever get angry. And he was like, "Where is he?" Because he's so exhausted, and he's just like ran his heart out. And then that time's been lost, and he just lost it for a moment.
I'm sure he did.
We laugh about it now. Like
it wasn't funny at the time. That much I can tell you.
I wouldn't have laughed at him at the time. It'd probably ripped my head off. But just awaken strategy. Yeah, and I mentioned about having a contingency if someone's injured, but we sort of covered that. Yeah. Okay, let's get back to the live questions quick, see if there's any more. Ellie's asking, for someone thinking of endurance racing, what training would you advise?
I would definitely recommend training, because I'm the worst person for it. It's, you know, you've got to up your mileage slowly. Again, I'm the worst person to be giving this kind of advice because I don't do it myself. I mean, I had my knee operation in the November. I was not allowed to run until the end of May. And then I did Endure solo. So you definitely train slowly, you know, build yourself up to your marathon distance. Obviously, I don't know what distance you are running at the moment. So build your, you know, train your body to cope with the endurance. You know, don't go crazy. I certainly wouldn't go out every weekend and smash out marathons and stuff like that. It really depends on your own personal preference, but training is really important, as well as the interval training. You know, don't forget that side of things. It's really important. To do the small distances, to do the fartleks, which I hate, and the park runs, which I hate just as much, you know, but those are the things that keep you going as well, you know, and people forget that those are actually quite really important to keep your body in tune for endurance, because, you know, you may feel like you're just about ready to give up, but then you'll have this burst of energy, and that's where the interval training comes in. Yeah, definitely. And I think, you know, when I've done these relays, I've been marathon training, but my goal marathon would have been maybe an autumn marathon, something like Abingdon or Chester or one of the autumn ones. So you're doing your long run training as part of that. So you need to be doing long run training, and almost you've got to cover a marathon maybe. You know, if you know the people you're with and the speeds that they run, so you can almost calculate exactly how many laps you're going to need to do in that 24 hours. So at Cotswolds, it's a 9K lap. What's the distance? I think it's 8K. 8K. 8K, I think. So, you know, 8 or 9K times however many, work it out, and you've got to be able to run that distance. And even though you might be doing it in segments, you've still got to cover it. So you need that endurance there. But I mean, also ultras can be anything over 26.2 miles. So start small and work your way up. I mean, I did an ultra in January this year, country to capital, so it was from Wendover down to London. Phenomenal, awesome event. And that was 45 miles. So an ultra is any distance over 26.2. So just start small and work your way up. Yeah. I'm going for my 100. That's all I'm saying. 100 miles? 100 miles. I was supposed to be doing it this year, but I couldn't. Yeah, crazy. I'm not allowed to do marathon distance at the moment, so I can't do Endure 24, but I'm definitely going back next year, and I'm going to go for my 100 miles. Not allowed to do 26.2, just go and do 100 instead, you know. I'll be training, though. I'll be training. Yeah, no, good luck. That sounds awesome. Well, maybe we can talk about that on another live stream in the future. That would be awesome. Right. I can tell you some good 12-hour runs, actually.
We've got, what 12-hour races?
Yeah.
And it's similar to the 24s, but just shorter.
Yeah, shorter distance. So one that I can definitely recommend is it's the East Farm Frolic down in Dorset. The East Farm Frolic is a lap race as well. It's a beautiful setting. The organisers are phenomenal. They are super organised, but these men do not take life seriously. So their water station is called the Love Station, and you can have anything from water to vodka shots at any point during the run. So yes, I did partake in a shot at 10 o'clock in the morning, you know. So those are also good, you know, to work your way up to your 24-hour runs. And again, you can do your solos, you can do your pairs, you can do your groups. So don't just go for the solo in, you know, 24-hour. Go and do smaller things first.
Okay. Right, we've got a couple more questions around nutrition then. So Ellie's asking, as well as nutrition, what do you eat leading up to the event? And so sort of fueling for the event, I guess. And then the Running Squares asked what advice we have about recovery, runs and food after the event. So it's two sort of similar questions. So fueling is very unique to the individual, isn't it? You know,
it is. Again, it really depends on your body. I mean, I don't eat any differently. You know, up until the event, I hear you need to carb load. I don't, because I'm scared of carbs. So it's personal preference. So yeah, it definitely is difficult.
Depends how you've trained as well. If you've trained to use carbohydrates a lot and gels and all that kind of stuff, you're gonna need those, and you're gonna need to eat carbohydrates. And there might be someone else who's followed a completely different type of eating and training regime, and they've become what's known as a fat adapted athlete. So just Google that.
I'm going to Google that because I've never heard of
athlete, and then you'll see the difference between the two, and then you can decide which of the two sort of diets you think you follow, and then that might help you. I'm not an expert in that, so I'm not going to try and give you information because I might get it wrong. You're better off reading from the credible sites that know about that.
Again, it's
you've got to eat
personal.
You've got to eat loads of food. You know, you've got to get fuel in you. Just depending on what you eat is up to you. You know, but I think you've got to have protein. You've got to have carbohydrate, definitely. It just depends what source you want to get that from. And sort of recovery, running after this. I mean,
run the very next day as far as you can. No, you rest. You rest the following day.
Yeah.
I personally believe in cross training, so doing something, you know, different. So instead of going for a run, I mean, if you can swim, go for a swim.
Yeah.
You know, take it easy after an event. Don't be in such a rush to go back out there. You know, give yourself a break. I mean, you can do your small recovery runs later on in the week, but don't be in a rush to do it.
Yeah. And if you're doing the Cotswold one, there is a really good McDonald's in Cirencester, which I can recommend because I've used it 3 times, and we've eaten chicken nuggets and God knows what else, all junk food. Like, we've earned it after all that running, so we've rewarded ourselves and then gone home and slept for an entire day.
Yes.
And then just carry on as normal after that, I guess. Right. Okay. So that's all the questions we've got at the moment. We've got probably about 5 or 10 minutes max left, everybody. So if you've got any more questions, please do get them in, and we'll try and answer them for you.
And I promise I won't come back again because this is obviously not my gig.
No, I really appreciate you coming to help me with this, because you've obviously done an event I haven't done, and you've done solo, so you can bring something to the people watching this that I can't, bring on my own. So I really appreciate the help.
No problem at all. Happy to bring my sarcasm.
It's all good. I think a bit of banter's good in these. Okay, so talking about the facilities then.
Yeah.
Are there going to be toilets?
Yeah, Endure 24 have got toilets. They've also got shower facilities. I would not recommend brushing your teeth in the shower facilities, as people learned 2 years ago at Endure when they had a massive outbreak of some kind of stomach something or other. So yeah, toilets, showers, they are quite far away from the camping area. So I would recommend also having baby wipes, because baby wipes are quite cute, you can keep them on you, you can use them. I've always got baby wipes in my car because I not only do ultra running, I also do obstacle course racing. So, you know, if you don't have a shower to get to, you need to clean yourself. What else?
I was going to say on showers, take some flip-flops or some Crocs or something like that, because the shower floors can get pretty muddy as runners come off the course plastered. If it's wet, that all goes in the shower. It can get pretty grim. So flip-flops or Crocs is a must. Keep those feet clean. Right. What have I put here? Oh, for the lads, obviously night we've got the benefit of using the bushes. So going back to...
Ladies, you can use the bushes too. Just make sure no one sees you go there.
Yes, but going back to pitching your camp, that might be something to think about when you pick your location.
Or find the biggest tree.
Yes. And then we've talked about other facilities. We talked about the food tent. There's a bar at the Cotswolds if you want to get hammered in the middle of your 24-hour race.
There's a bar at Endure 24, and people do get hammered during their 24-hour race.
It's good at the end. Bit of a party at the end, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
That we had ice baths and massage tent. What about Endure?
I don't recall seeing ice baths at Endure, but definitely massage. And then, of course, I mentioned that they are introducing the yoga this year, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, it's not a bad shout, is it? A bit of stretching and getting all the tension out.
Quite unusual, but quite a good idea. And then, obviously, you get your different branded places. So it would be Mizuno that have all of their merchandise and stuff like that there.
Running Square has said he would highly advise races organised by Running Miles, who organise 6-hour races. So we've got 24s, we've got 12s, and we've got 6s. So there's options. If you think 24 sounds like a bit too much, you could still experience this team camping and running and the enjoyment of it all, and just do it over the shorter time. It's really good to know, because then that caters for sort of all abilities of runner. And Ellie is saying she loves beer in between laps. Yeah, definitely.
You've got to do East Brom 5 then, because then you can have other alcohol and it's accepted on every single lap. And it's free. Yeah,
it's really good. So, I think in summary then, we're coming up to 24-hour race season, June and July. Hopefully, if you were thinking about doing one, this might have helped you decide whether you're going to actually go for it or not. Or if you are doing one, it's hopefully helped you and, giving you some tips to prepare for it and, take a bit of the unknown and the scariness out of it for you. Hope you've enjoyed this. And Sam, once again, thanks for coming on. Yeah, it's been really good. We had a good laugh. And and there's no more comments and questions, so we're going to call it a day there, I think. So as always, if you've liked this video, please do give it a thumbs up. If you subscribe to the channel already, thank you very much. If you don't, please consider hitting that subscribe button. And then next to it, there is a bell now. And if you hit that bell notification thing, it tells you every time I go live and you don't miss a video like this. I can't do them at the same time every single week because of my working patterns. So if you use the bell, you'll just know when I'm going live. And thanks very much for watching, everybody. We'll see you on the next one.
Connor, you owe me a drink.
Yeah, and me. I might as well just throw that in there. You owe me one as well. See you later. Thank you.
Bye.